Let's just be clear about one thing. The Dolphins have never been good against good teams with Tua Tagavailoa as their quarterback. Now without him, they're just bad against bad teams. And Mike McDaniel's on the hot seat. Let me explain. The reality is Tua has just never been good against good football teams. He's 7-14 in his career coming into 2024 against teams with a 500 record or better. And look at his numbers in those games. They're just not very good. Now, they're 7-14 in those games against teams above 500. He has a 60% completion percentage, which is not bad. 225 yards passing per game, averages 1.3 touchdowns per game, 0.86 interceptions per game, and his passer rating is on average 84.3 per game. Look, it's not terrible. I just don't know if it's worth $212 million in some MVP talk. But a 500 record really isn't a barometer for the best teams in football. So really what is? Well, the teams that make the playoffs. So in the last two seasons, how has Tua been against playoff teams? Well, 2022, he went 2-4 against teams that made the playoffs. And then last year, he goes 1-5 against teams that make the playoffs. It's a combined 3-9 record in the last two seasons. And we know he's lost his only playoff appearance. Now it makes me think of the entire Brian Flores situation where Tua came out and kind of said, this is the way he talked to me.
To put it in simplest terms, if you woke up every morning and I told you you suck at what you did, that you don't belong doing what you do, that you shouldn't be here, that this guy should be here, that you haven't earned this right, and then you have somebody else come in and tell you, dude, you are the best fit for this. Like, you are accurate, you are the best whatever, you are this, you are that.
Now, you can have a debate whether, professional athletes should be talked to this way or not talked to this way. It all depends who the coach is and who the player is and how they feel the best way to coach them. That's a whole other discussion. But when it comes to Brian Flores, he had Tua Tagavailoa forced on him. He wasn't really involved in the decision. It was a big part of why he was exited at Miami. And Mike McDaniel, when he came in, he knew who he was getting, and it was his decision. The reality is Brian Flores has won more with Tua than Mike McDaniels has. In his last 38 games, Brian Flores was 22-16 with the Dolphins. Now Mike McDaniel, the savior, who's doing all this stuff, and he knows how to use Tua and blah, blah, blah. With their loss last night, he's 21-17 in his first 38 games with the Miami Dolphins. He's one game worse than Flores was. Now Flores is the DC with the undefeated Minnesota Vikings, and Mike McDaniel's stuck with $212 million Tua, who can't beat good teams. And yeah, the Dolphins gave him $212 million, but the reality is, with Tua Tagovailoa as their quarterback, the Dolphins have just kind of been bullies. Meaning, against bad teams, they beat up on them. We see these crazy numbers. They run all over them, wide open. Everyone's talking as Tua MVP, this, that, and the other thing, like they were last year going into December before they lost 4 straight. And then against the good teams, they not only do they, not beat them, they kind of get beat up pretty bad. They got that bully mentality of Tua against good football teams.